Have you ever felt like there is just too much going on? Too many kids, too full of a house, too much stuff, and you feel like, yes, I want to move forward. I want to create this beautiful life, this life that I want to live. But at the same time, I just feel like there's too much to even think about what that life looks like today. Well, what we're going to be talking about today is how to set goals and reach them whenever you have a house full of littles. I hope you'll join me. Welcome to A More Beautiful Life Collective, the podcast where I help Christian women bridge the gap between the woman that they want to be and the life that they're currently living, with grace, simple rhythms, and a heart rooted in God. I'm your host, Casey Fletcher. Let's take the next step together. Hello and welcome to A More Beautiful Life Collective podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fletcher, and I am here today to walk with you as we grow in grace, build with purpose, and live beautifully. We are back this week, and what we are talking about this week is goal setting whenever your hands are full. This is the first episode in a series where I'm hoping that we can talk about what it's like when you have a lot of little kids, you have a lot of stuff going on, maybe you have a business that you're running, maybe you have several ministries you're involved in, and you just feel like life is so full. How can I take time and make progress towards the things that I want to do to create a life we love and cultivate our heart for God? How can we do those things when we feel like our life is full? Maybe even whenever we feel like our life is so full that it's overflowing. That's what we're going to be talking about in this. The goal is that we are going to have 4 episodes released back to back, so you'll be able to get the next one within the next couple of days to kind of jumpstart your year. We're already to February, and as we think about all the things going on, it's easy to take the goals and things that we had set at the beginning of the year and kind of push them aside as we head on into the rest of the year. And so before we move on and we talk about all these other areas of our life, I want to take some time and talk about goal setting. One of the things I also want to do on the podcast is share a little bit about my life and kind of what's been going on, some of the thoughts that I've been having. One of the things that I love about podcasts, especially some of the podcasts where I get to hear the same people every week, is you get a glimpse into people's lives and you get to see how they live. You can do this by following me on Instagram, where I post, and right now I'm posting every day as part of the hashtag AMBL365 challenge, looking at beautiful things each day, and not beautiful as in, pieces of artwork or maybe pieces of poetry, though those things are beautiful. But I want us to be thinking about beauty where we're at, this beauty that is not necessarily something that is aesthetically beautiful, but it's a beautiful life because it's a life lived with the values that we know are the most meaningful. So as I share a little bit on the podcast, I think sometimes we can kind of jump to the ideas, but I want you to also get to see my life. And I would love to hear more about your life. And you can connect with me on Instagram or Facebook. Or you can also join our Facebook group where we can have conversations about how you're cultivating beauty every day. One of the things that I have found beautiful recently, I've been sharing this a little bit on Instagram, so you can find the pictures there, but I've been learning how to crochet. So I way back whenever I was a kid, I had gotten a couple of needles. My great aunt actually used to crochet these crosses, and so she gave me some crochet hooks. I had also gotten knitting needles way back in the day, but I kind of set it aside. I said, oh, there's too much stuff going on. I can't focus on that right now. But then recently, I've just been needing something to get me off my phone, and so in the evenings, one of my favorite ways to wind down now at the end of the day while my kids, I'm nursing the baby, the kids are getting in their pajamas and things, is I pick up my crochet hook. And one of the best ways to learn crochet, if you are interested in learning, is to start making some granny squares. That's what I've been really working on right now as I've been growing in my skills. And so that's just something beautiful that has really been kind of that touch point in the day, that anchor in the day that helps to kind of calm me down, recenter me, get me thinking not on all the things that I need to do, but on the matter at hand. And as I crochet and as I think about these things, repetitive work, whether that's washing dishes or doing laundry or crocheting, repetitive work often allows you to think about your life. And so again, what we're talking about today is the start of a new series that I hope will bless you. And again, it'll be short in the scope of the year, because I'm hoping to release these quickly, but is thinking about how you can keep your life going, recenter yourself, keep focusing on how you want to be effective for God's kingdom, even when you have little kids. Recently, I've been doing a Bible study, and it's a group of women, BSF, Bible Study Fellowship, that meets on, it meets in person once a week, and then it also, you work through a workbook and has notes and a lecture and all these kinds of things, have childcare. It's been great, and I've loved going to these studies. And so the study this year is on exile and return. And so we've been going through different books in the Old Testament, both prophecy, books of prophecy, and obviously you look at like Ezra and Nehemiah and Esther. And so we just finished Haggai, and he was a prophet that was focused on telling the people what they should be building. And the people, it's so interesting, the people were focused on building their own houses. But what Haggai tells them is, you guys, you're living in these super nice paneled houses, and you know what you've neglected to do? You've neglected to build God's home. You've neglected to build the temple. They've experienced a lot of opposition. And so what he tells them is, because you've neglected to build the temple, the things that you've been working for, your fields, all these kinds of things, those things are like basically sand running through your fingers. You've never been able to hold on to them. Your harvest has never been what you want it to be, because you are neglecting the most important things. And that really got me thinking, as I look at my life, what am I holding as most important? What am I prioritizing? On the blog, you can read the full blog post for this article, and I'm not going to go into everything that I write about. So if you ever feel like, oh, I wish we could learn some more about the topic that we're talking about, whether that's goal setting or habits or any of the other things that we've talked about, on the blog, I have a full post written out that goes in depth and also connects you back to some of the other resources we have about this, because we've talked about this quite a bit. But one of the things I was thinking about with goal setting is, we often make goals that are for our own glory. We often make goals and things that are focused on building our homes before we build good things for God's kingdom. When Haggai came to the people and he told them that, he said, you need to focus on the right things. And that thing is not making yourself comfortable in your super nice houses. And that's what's interesting, is the people, they had stopped building because they felt like there was so much opposition that they weren't able to build the temple. And there was. They were afraid. At times they even had to have guards that would protect the temple building site. What's interesting is that, all of this was going on behind the scenes, where they felt like, oh, there's too much opposition to be able to build the temple. But at the same time, they had not face that opposition. That they didn't say there was too much opposition to build their own houses. So I think they were using an excuse. As I was thinking about this last year, you can listen to the last podcast, and I kind of gave you some insight into what my year has been like. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the same thing. I wonder if I am focused on building my own house and neglecting to build these good and lasting things for God's kingdom. When I look at this past year, there were things that I needed to do to kind of pull myself back and make sure that I was focused on the people around me. I definitely don't think that you should sacrifice your family for this a vanity project, or sacrifice your family for your work. You shouldn't sacrifice your family for building bigger barns, right? But at the same time, I think we often live in a culture that says, well, these things outside my home make me uncomfortable. I don't want to step outside my home and serve other people, because I want to make sure that I am doing, and what people say is that I want to make sure that I am, serving my family first. But really what they're doing, in effect, is that they're just staying comfortable. They're not necessarily serving their family. And the reason why I'm thinking about this is, as I look at this past year, and the things that I accomplished. I did do quite a bit. Like I did, as far as the blog goes, I revamped the whole shop. I revamped the website and gave it, a refresh, in outside, blog and internet land. I also did other things with our ministry at church. I did things with a national ministry. I wrote some quarterlies for our national ministry. There were things that I was doing, as well as, just the day in, day out of raising a family. But I think sometimes we think that we are working and building our family when really all we're doing is staying in our comfort zone. And so as I look at goal setting when your hands are full, I think we have to put things in perspective. Whenever we were doing this study, one of the women said, well, you have to make sure that you're very clear that, your family is your most important ministry. And that's true to a certain extent. I do think that our families are the place where we are called first to disciple. We're supposed to train up our kids, and we do it daily, right? Whenever we're training up our kids, we talk with them in the morning as we go about the day, as we have lunch, as we have dinner. That's one of the beauties of homeschooling, is that we get to talk to our kids every day about what we're doing. But I think whenever we say that we're putting our family first, but we're not necessarily putting discipleship first. What we're doing is we're putting the comfort of the family first. And so all these pursuits, all these fun things that we do, that's what we're putting first. And so we have to be really careful as we think about goal setting with littles, that we're not idolizing our family above the good kingdom work that we need to do. I've been thinking a lot about an author and blogger. Her name is Sally Clarkson. I mentioned her in the last episode, but she's been sharing a little bit about her life and her legacy on her podcast. And so as I was thinking about some of the things that she did, she's the perfect example of somebody who says, motherhood is a good and high calling. Whenever you are investing in the littles in your house, you are doing a good thing. Rachel Jankovic, she wrote Loving the Little Years, which is a great book if you feel like you are in the overwhelm of motherhood. But one of the things that Rachel talks about in her book, and Sally has talked about in her books, is that you are pouring yourself out for your kids. You don't need to get away from your kids and find yourself. Motherhood is something that defines you, and that's a good thing. That's okay. But as we think about all this, we shouldn't idolize motherhood and forsake the other ministry around us, forsake these other callings that we have. So I just wanted to leave you guys today with these thoughts about motherhood, and about, as you look at this upcoming year, there's all these things that you can set your mind to. But truly, the most important goal in your life, the most important priority in your life should be your good kingdom calling. And so you can set all the goals that you want, but if you're not focused on the kingdom calling, everything is for naught. And you might say, well, what is that? It's like everybody's going to have something different. You're going to work out your calling based on your life situation. And that's where you have to find that discernment of what is the thing I should set my mind to. But the question that you have to answer to figure out what that is how is your life building God's kingdom? And if your goals don't fall into that, then they can be misplaced. Now, there's some things that are good, like gardening and working with our hands. And, I was talking about crocheting, those things are good. But even in those things, there's ways that you can build God's kingdom with that. You can enjoy the goodness of the work itself, but then you can also use that thing to serve other people. I was talking about my great aunt Clara, and one of the things that she would do with those crosses is she would give them to everybody. And we had several, but she made one for all the kids in our junior church class back in the day. She would give them to people, and she would say, I want you to take this. I want you to know that I'm praying for you. And I want you to, whenever you see this, that you remember that I'm praying for you and that you remember God's love. It was a work of her hand, but it was also something that she was using that to bless other people. And we all are able to do that wherever we are. If you're gardening, you can use some of your produce and you can help feed the other people. We were reading verses in Leviticus this week, and one of the verses is don't glean all the way to the edges of your field. You need to save some for other people so that the poor and the foreigner have food. And you can do the same thing, where instead of being so focused on preserving everything that you can so that your family doesn't ever have to go to the grocery store, you could think about how you can bless people with the produce. And that doesn't mean that you don't steward things well, but it means you think about, how can I use what I'm doing, my everyday life, how can I do that and bless other people? And you're blessing other people not for your own glory, but to point people back to Christ, to point people back to the gospel, and to point people to the kingdom, to seek his kingdom first. So I wanted to close today with a prayer, and I hope that you'll join me for the next episode. If you like this podcast, I would really appreciate it if you send it to a friend. And you can also find me on Instagram at A More Beautiful Life Collective. You can also find more resources in the shop to help you create a life you love and cultivate your heart for God. So let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for the time to just think about you, think about your word, and think about our priorities, how we are living for you today. I pray that you will help the people that listen to this podcast to truly love you more and to think about how they can serve you every day of their life in obedience. And Lord, I pray that you will help direct our steps and guide us so that we can build your kingdom here. I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for joining me this week on A More Beautiful Life Collective podcast. If you love what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. You can also visit my blog at amorebeautifullifecollective.com for more resources, printables, and guides to help you cultivate faith, purpose, and joy every day. Until next time, keep creating a life you love and cultivate your heart for God.